Hey there you guys, it is me, RandomJosh, and I'm back again with another Random Monday video. So I want to just quickly start off by saying I apologise for any background noise. I've literally got all of my windows open, I've got my fan on. As you can see, I'm very sweaty. This lighting does not help. So the main theme of today's video is something that is very relevant to myself, and I'm sure it's quite relevant to a lot of people out there, and it is surrounding the pros and the cons of working from home. So for a lot of people who have the ability to, COVID has essentially caused working from home to become the new norm, which at first for a lot of people I think has been, you know, quite a challenge, but it's kind of allowed different things for different people. So for some people it might be really, you know, helpful and amazing. For others it might be a little bit more closer to the distressing side. So I just wanted to talk openly about my own personal views on the pros and cons of home working. So just a bit of background as well, I have also just recently found out that I'm essentially going to be a permanent home worker. So this means that I will no longer be going into an office building. I will be situated in my house whilst doing my job. So for some that may be really good, for others may not be as good. Now personally, I won't lie, I wasn't, you know, the most thrilled. Obviously you do always have to look at the benefits and the positives of this. So I still have a job. Anything else can happen. As long as I've still got a job, that is highest priority. So I always have to try and remember that in the back of my head. However, it wasn't the most ideal scenario. I personally find it a lot more difficult to focus, and it's just the whole working from home thing, it just throws me off. You know, you want that separation. So anywho, that is my own quick run through of my opinions. Yeah. So we're gonna kick things off with a bit of a pro. So the first pro that I personally have on top of everything is the fact it's something small, but there's no dress code. So what I mean by this is, some companies you can go in dressed in whatever you want. Obviously with this weather recently, so my job I wasn't, I had to kind of look smart casual. So I didn't have to go fully suited up, but there are companies that would, you know, make people go fully suited up. This weather, I have to say, it's a bit more difficult to do that because it's obviously more uncomfortable, you're sweaty. So I've been living in shorts and short t-shirts or anything that I can kind of get away with that allows for air breathement and all that good stuff. So that is a really big positive for me. So just the ability to kind of feel a bit more comfortable, not have to worry about, you know, I still try and get myself up and get myself dressed every day for work. I'm not one of those people. Some people might be the ones that would prefer to just kind of sit in their pajamas. That's absolutely fine, that's up to them. For me personally, I just prefer to kind of get myself ready. It puts me in a bit of a mind zone where I'm right, this is my day beginning. And if you've seen my day in a life quarantine edition, you'll know that I pretty much every lunchtime go for a nice little walk. So it just means that I can, obviously as soon as lunchtime comes, I can just go on my walk and not have to worry about rushing to try and get clothes on, wasting more time and using up my own freed time lunch, you know, because you only get hours lunch break, so I want to like focus that hour on myself and not having to worry about anything else. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Right, so on to a con now. So this I did kind of talk about just a second ago, I believe. May not have. But yeah, the con is loneliness. You're very secluded, it can be very lonely. For me, I obviously live at home with my family, so they are around, which is nice, but it's not the same as like a work vibe. So where I would normally, like, I'm used to going into my office, seeing the people that I work with, like visually seeing them, having the face-to-face communications, because body language is such a big part of communication. You can have a conversation over the phone and not really understand, and things can get miscommunicated, and it just kind of goes a bit downhill from there. So having that physical communication and like the idea of body language is so beneficial to not only ourselves, but like just to the whole picture of, you know, communicating with one another, essentially. But obviously other people around the world or wherever are potentially going to be living on their own or living with flatmates that maybe they don't get on with, or they have family that they don't get on with, which just adds like that extra level of difficulty. And as well, if you're like in a household with multiple people who are also having to work from home, it can become quite a challenge, because I mean, for some people they have to take calls over the, like, you're taking calls day in, day out, so you have to have peace and quiet to like as much extent as you can. So like for me, I'm not taking calls at the current moment, but if I ever do have to go back to taking calls, it's obviously going to be a little bit more tricky, because my family are like 9 times out of 10 they're going to be home. They'll want to do things around the house, play music, clean, like hoovering. It's all distraction. So things like that need to kind of be factored into it. So it's a little bit difficult for home working. Right, so another pro is that there is of course no travel times and expenses. So for me, it wasn't like the hugest deal traveling in. Like, I probably got up at the same, like a similar time to what I'm getting up at now for work anyway, because like I live relatively close to my office, so it's not like world changing, maybe like 10-15 minutes difference. Obviously like the expense side is making a difference, but again, like even travel is not, for me, wasn't too expensive, probably like £3 a day. I mean, it adds up, that's like £15 a week, £60 a month. So it does mount up, of course, but it's not that drastic of a change, if you get what I mean. Like traveling into an office versus just kind of being here. Like obviously for me, if anyone doesn't know, I am a very much not a morning person, sorry. For me, I am not the most morning person. I tend to prefer having a lie-in, and as soon as we get to like 12 o'clock at night, I'm wide awake. So I'm more of an evening person than a morning person. That being said, it's not a huge difference. I guess for some people who do live that further bit away, it can be quite beneficial, and that could become quite an important factor to like think about, because, you know, anything probably above an hour, that's a ridiculous amount of time. Even like half an hour, it amounts up. Like if you think like traveling half an hour there and half an hour back, that's an hour of your day just traveling. that's probably quite an expensive travel as well. So, you know, that could, in terms of other people, be quite a pro, but for other people it might not be as much of a pro. So for me it's kind of like a half pro. It is a pro, but it's not, if you get what I mean. But it's still on the pro side. So another con to do with this is the home electricity and gas. So obviously when you're working from home, you are going to be at home. There's constantly going to be use of things like the gas and the electricity. For me, I'm constantly on my laptop because that's how I have to work. So our electric is kind of constantly going. Obviously at the moment the gas is probably not as much affected because of the heat, but come the winter months I'm gonna probably have to have the heating on all day long to make sure that I'm, you know, not sitting there like frozen at my desk trying to work. So it again just adds up. So obviously some companies may offer some kind of funding or assistance with your bills in that sense, but again you've got to kind of like analyse if they're doing that. If they're not, you know, as much as you're saving with the travel, is then that going to kind of more so affect your gas and electricity? So is your gas and electricity going to go up at a higher rate than your travel and expenses coming down, if you see what I mean? So let's say your gas and electric goes up by £10, no, not £10. Let's say, for argument's sake, £50 a month, but your travel expenses goes down by £30 a month. Does that seem worth it? Not really. I mean, it's not a huge difference again, but for some people it could be. You don't know the situation. This is the difficult bit with the pros and cons of anything, is everyone's in different situations, whether it be financially, mentally, anything. Every person's situation is different. So another pro that some people might find quite enjoyable is like the flexibility. So for some people who, you know, potentially have children or other kind of necessities to take care of during the day, you know, you could balance that out with your work by, you know, coming to some kind of agreement with your employers so that you can obviously work around your home life and the errands and anything that you need to do. So whether it be, you know, dropping your child to school and things like that. So it sometimes can be quite beneficial for those types of things. For me, again, I don't really have to deal with any of that kind of stuff, so it's not necessarily a high list pro on my books, but for other people that could become actually quite a really beneficial piece. So for instance, my mum, she used to work from home when she had me, so it meant that she could easily be, you know, at home 24/7 with myself growing up, so that I had that constant bond and care whilst growing up, so that she wasn't obviously having to go into work. She was still working her full day, but she obviously had that like flexibility. Now for some people, again, the flexibility depends on your job and, you know, how lenient your employers may be. Some employers may be a little bit more like on the fence whether they can offer you that flexibility, because again, business is business. You know, if someone can't work, you know, they have to think of the business side of things rather than the actual personal side of things. So it depends. Like some employees might be really, you know, lenient, whereas others might be a lot stricter. So again, different scenarios, it really does change. And I'm gonna just talk about one last con, especially for myself, and that is distractions. So when you've kind of taken yourself out of that workplace environment, it can become very easily just to let yourself become a lot more distracted by little things. So like tying in with the flexibility, you have to still have a balance. So you can't just continually go, oh well, I'll just do, you know, just hoover around a little bit, or just tidy this away. Like, you are there to do a job, so you have to make sure that you are 100% focused on the job that you are there to do, and not letting things around the house get in the way of that. So like for me, sometimes, you know, my family seem to forget that I work from home and just kind of walk into my room, have a little chat. Fair enough, like that's not a huge deal, but when that happens on a constant basis, it can ball up into something more intense, which could be noticeable and could lead to potential like disciplinaries and things like that, which is just a big headache, and you don't really want to be dealing with that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very difficult to get yourself out of the mindset of, you know, easily distractedness. So obviously for me, I work in my bedroom, but equally my bedroom is where I do this. I film my videos, I sleep here, I relax here. So it's kind of blending a workplace with a place of relaxation, like fun basically, and blending them together. So it's often difficult to kind of differentiate between the two. So like in your mind you could be going, well, you know, let's say for argument's sake, I'm laying in bed right now. I can just, you know, take a look at my phone, play some games, be done with it. And then you go, oh, I'm actually at work right now, should be doing my job. You know, it's all very, like, it's all well and good to take breaks. You need to take breaks from work, because if you don't, you're gonna, you know, your stress levels are gonna raise, your mental health is gonna become come under attack, so to say, and you're just not going to be likely to work, you know, at an efficient level. If you're pushing yourself to like the absolute limits, you know, your brain is just going to be like, it's going to give up, and you're not going to be able to do the job that you're there to do. So it's about finding balance. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of pros and cons to home working. Again, I used to be a lot more negative about it. I'm still very much so on the fence. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's not something that I'd, you know, want to do for a long-term thing. I mean, I'm happy enough at the moment, it's working for me, but who knows what the future's going to hold. That's the thing. But I think a lot of companies now are looking towards the more home working side, but I just hope that these particular companies are looking into more than just the business. Obviously, again, business is business, but if your employees are not happy and are stressed, they're more likely to leave, and then you get really bad, you know, employment rates, and it just doesn't look positive on the company as a whole. Right, there you guys, so that is pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video. I know it's a little bit more serious topic than the normal like light-hearted fun topics, but I like to kind of throw these serious things in, because as much as I am, you know, youthful and probably does seem like I don't have a care in the world, unfortunately I am an adult and I have to have cares about these kind of things. That's life. But yeah, I hope that you did kind of enjoy this, and if you are a home worker at the moment, or if your company is looking into home working, then at least you've got something to kind of look into, and potentially this might help to sway you one way or the other. But hopefully you will make an informed decision for yourself and not just for everyone else around you. You have to think about yourself at the end of the day, and that is the only person who is important in your life. But thank you again for watching, and I will see each and every one of you guys in the next video. Peace out, bitches.